The Las Vegas Raiders officially lose to the Kansas City Chiefs 17-19. But what an absolute thriller of a game, man. The Raiders almost were able to win that game. And unfortunately, due to a bad snap slash Dylan Parham tapping the center snaps the football, the Raiders fumble. And the Kansas City Chiefs are able to pick the ball up while the Raiders were in field goal range with like 15 seconds left. Truth be told, the Raiders should have won that game, but unfortunately, it just was not in the cards for the Raiders to win. Now, there were a couple of really, really nice performances from a couple different guys that we're going to talk about in this video. But before we get into it, man, let's just talk about that play at the end of this game. Because I'm seeing a lot of comments where people are kind of confused on like exactly what happened. So right away, one of the things that the Raiders had to do coming into this game, because of the fact that it was an away game and it was so loud out there, is they had to go with the silent count. Especially towards the end of the game, teams usually go to that. Essentially what that means is the guard will tap the center and let the center when it's okay to snap the football. Usually there will be some sort of call that the quarterback will give to the guard. So sometimes he'll lift his foot, sometimes, I don't know, look at him or whatever he'll say. And then as soon as that guard gets that call from the quarterback, he'll look over to the center and he'll tap the center. In this instance, Dylan Parham tapped Jackson Powers-Johnson. A second later, Powers-Johnson snaps the football, but Aiden O'Connell was looking to the left. So the Raiders fumbled the football because of that. So I'm not 100% sure who made that mistake. Obviously, Dylan Parham saw something with Aiden O'Connell that told him to tell Powers-Johnson to snap the football. But the Raiders lose this game regardless. The Raiders are 2-10. Kansas City Chiefs are now 11-1. But this game should just tell you guys that the Raiders aren't that far away from actually being a good team. We're really not, right? In this game, we got two things that we have not gotten all season. That was, we got a quarterback that was willing to take shots downfield. There was a quarterback that played within the structure of the offense. And we got a running back that actually had success running the football. Our offensive line did a phenomenal job being able to create lanes. For the most part, the pass protection was pretty good as well. Sincere McCormick, man, he's an absolute legit running back, or at least he's the best running back we have on this roster. At least healthy. The guy had 12 carries for 64 yards, averaged 5.3 yards per attempt. It's kind of interesting to me that Sincere McCormick has not gotten, as many carries as he probably should. Even today, he only had 12 carries, and we gave 10 carries to Amir Abdullah. I would make the argument Sincere McCormick should have like 80% of the touches at this point. Now, I do think that the Raiders, as they kind of go forward, still got to get a running back, but Sincere McCormick's a lot better than some of the guys that we've given more touches to, right? Like Zamir White, as an example, is not a very good running back, at least in my opinion. And it's kind of crazy that in camp, the coaches saw Sincere McCormick, they saw Zamir White, and they decided that Zamir White was better than Sincere McCormick. That didn't make sense to me, right? Because McCormick clearly looks like the better running back. Even more so than that, we got guys like Brock Bowers dominate. 10 catches, 140 yards, and a touchdown. He had a phenomenal one-handed catch, as well as a touchdown that ended up going, I don't know the exact amount of yards it was, but it was a really, really nice touchdown. He caught it, was able to run it in 4 or 5 yards after that. Now, one of the interesting things is early on in the game, Jakobi Meyers looked really, really good. And then after that, he really didn't have any more catches. After the first quarter, he had one catch that went for like 11 yards. But outside of that, Trey Tucker had a touchdown catch, right? It went for 58 yards. DJ Turner had a couple of nice plays. Trey Tucker had a run, and Brock Bowers had a run. Right? It was a key third down run that Bowers had. I felt like the team, generally speaking, did a really, really good job on the offensive side of the football. But the guy that really put it together was the quarterback. Aiden O'Connell had a phenomenal game. He was 23 of 35, 340 yards, and 2 touchdowns. In my opinion, this was the best game I had seen from a Raiders quarterback this season. And it's kind of interesting that the Raiders saw Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, and they also decided that Aiden O'Connell was not better than Minshew. Because what I saw against the Chiefs was a quarterback that is the best quarterback on this roster. Now, we'll see what ends up happening as we kind of go forward. We have a couple games left. I think one of the interesting things with O'Connell is when the offensive scheme is if it's designed well and you give Aiden O'Connell those reads and the spacing's right, he's going to get the ball on point. And we saw that today, right? We saw that on a couple of plays. The Trey Tucker pass, right? I think it was a post wheel, and he ended up hitting Trey Tucker down the sideline, and Tucker caught it and ran it for a 58-yard touchdown. We also saw Aiden O'Connell hit Jakobi Meyers a couple times early on in the game. Brock Bowers a couple times. Aiden O'Connell did a phenomenal job, and even more so than that, we had essentially 3 missed field goals. Right, that's not on Aiden O'Connell. Now you can make the argument red zone offense wasn't really that good. I think that's still going to be the limitations with Aiden O'Connell, right? He does struggle to create at times. I think both of one was a red zone play and then one was a plus play on the plus side of the field. Aiden O'Connell ended up taking 2 sacks on third downs, made the field goals a little bit longer, and Daniel Carlson ended up missing those 2 field goals. But I think Aiden O'Connell's looked really good, right? And I think for the Raiders, the best thing you can do as you go forward is roll Aiden O'Connell out there and let this guy throw the ball 35, 40, 45 times. Let's see what this guy has. Because remember, if the Raiders, let's say we don't get the first overall pick, and let's say there's only one quarterback worthy of being the first overall pick. Like, would you rather reach on a quarterback or would you rather go forward with Aiden O'Connell? Right? So I want to see what Aiden O'Connell can do the rest of the season. You got to give a big shout out to O'Connell. He did a really good job. Definitely surprised me with his quarterback play. And on top of that, at the end of the game, the Raiders needed to get 3 points to win the game. He drove us right downfield, right? He had a couple of really nice passes. And for the Raiders, that's all you can expect out of your quarterback, right? I would make the argument Aiden O'Connell was not the reason the Raiders lost this game. I think most people kind of agree with that. But it's going to be interesting as we kind of go forward, right? Because Brock Bowers dominated with Aiden O'Connell. They obviously are already, have that connection. Jacoby Myers had a really good game. And the Raiders have some actual playmakers, right? And of course, you also got to give a lot of credit to the defense side of the football. The Raiders are not as close if it's not for the defense side of the football. The Kansas City Chiefs on the first drive of the game drove right downfield on us, and the defense got the stop in the red zone. They forced the Chiefs into a field goal. On the second drive that the Chiefs had the ball, they went right downfield. They scored a touchdown. But outside of that, in the second half, the Raiders did not allow any touchdowns. The Chiefs got close a couple of times, and their defense stepped up and stopped them. 3 separate drives, the Chiefs drive right downfield, and the defense gets a stop. At the end of the game, we needed a 3 and out. The defense gets a stop. The offense got the ball actually 2 separate times towards the end of the game, and that was because the defense on 2 separate times got a stop. You got to give credit to guys like Maxx Crosby, who has a crazy amount of effort on every single play. Clavon Chasen stepped the hell up and absolutely dominated the left tackle of the Chiefs. Wanya Moore's second-year left tackle has not looked good this season, even last season. He wasn't that good. And Clavon Chasen absolutely crushed this guy. And he got to the quarterback a couple different times. They even benched Wanya Morris, took Joe Tooney, who's their left guard, put him at left tackle. And then Clavon Chasen had multiple plays even against him. In the second half, Patrick Mahomes did not look good, right? He had a couple of nice plays, but he did not really look that good. And you could even make the argument that the referees helped out Patrick Mahomes multiple times. And there were multiple deep plays where they ended up getting a pass interference call. And they pick up 30, 40 yards on chunk plays. In fact, I think the touchdown that they had really came because of the fact that the referees gave them like 35 yards on Jack Jones, right? So, to me, I feel like the Raiders defense deserves so much credit, and you got to give a lot of credit to Antonio Pierce. There's guys like Clavon Chasen that ultimately get cut from other teams. There's guys like Jack Jones that get cut from other teams. And the Raiders go bring these guys in, and ultimately these guys have success. And Antonio Pierce is a big part of why these guys are having success. Of course, Patrick Graham's the guy coaching the defense. Rob Leonard's the defensive line coach. And, Ricky Manning's the defensive backs coach. And yes, you got to give those guys credit for kind of being able to do it. But AP's the guy that decides which free agents we're bringing in, which guys have upside, right? AP's bringing these guys in, talking to them, walking through with it, understanding and making sure those guys understand as well what it takes to be able to have success. And Clavon Chasen's come in and had a really good couple of weeks. To me, you got to give credit to AP. Now, before we go forward, I want to just take a second to give a big shout out to the sponsor of this channel, because this content would not be possible without Underdog. If you guys have never utilized Underdog before, trust me, man, you guys are missing out. I don't do traditional fantasy sports that often. I did do one league this year, but generally speaking, I'm not really doing it anymore. And that's mostly because of Underdog. Underdog has this game that I really enjoy. It's called Pick'em. Essentially, you're going to go out there and just make picks that you think are going to be right. They'll have pretty much every pick you can think of for every player, and they have multiple categories as well. So an example would be, I think Aiden O'Connell is going to throw for 125 yards. And you're essentially just going to pick higher on that, right? I think he'll have more than 125 yards. You might say, hey, Dak Prescott's going to have at least 2 touchdowns and pick higher on that. You might say Caleb Williams is going to have a rushing touchdown. And some of those stats also give you multipliers, right? So usually for quarterbacks rushing it in, right? That's something most quarterbacks aren't doing every single week. You'll get like a 4x multiplier on that. So depending on the multiplier, depending on how many picks, you can turn $5 into $400, $1,000, right? Whatever it ends up being. Obviously, it depends on the multiplier, but Underdog to me is one of those places that I pretty much do every single week at this point. Very fun. It makes like watching the Jets and the Dolphins without Tua makes them interesting, right? So check out Underdog. If you guys have never used them before, it is the best place. Trust me when I say that. Go to underdogfantasy.com, use my promo code that you guys see on the screen, or use the app. I recommend the app. So let's get right back into the content. To me, you got to give credit to AP. And I know people are still on the fire AP bandwagon. And I'm not even saying that like AP is a great coach or anything like that. And I hope people understand what I'm saying here. But AP deserves credit for the fact that the Raiders are still fighting at this point of the season, right? Because when you're 2-10, most guys are going to give up. Most guys are going to quit. Most players are like, I'm checking out and I'll be back next season. And with AP, that's not happening, right? The guys that are out there giving 100% effort. I know some people bash Jack Jones, right? Oh, he gets beat or he doesn't make tackles or whatever it is. But Jack Jones gives so much effort. And I watch tape with Jack Jones a lot, right? I watch every single game. And you're always going to see Jack Jones chasing plays backside. He's sprinting downfield to try to make a play. And AP has these guys bought in, right? So you got to give AP a lot of credit. The defense really stepped up, and especially in the third and fourth quarters, they did a really good job on Patrick Mahomes. Daniel Carlson had a couple of missed field goals. I think the Raiders have a great punter in AJ Cole. And I think sometimes people put AJ Cole and Daniel Carlson together, and they say both guys are great. I think AJ Cole's a top 2 or 3 punter. I don't think Daniel Carlson's a top 2 to 3 kicker. I don't think he's a top 10 kicker. I understand the field conditions out there, right? It was super cold. I get all that, but to me, you got to be able to make those field goals. I know they were long. I think one was a 59, one was a 58 that he missed, and I don't know exactly how long the third one was that he missed. But Daniel Carlson has to do a better job. He's missed field goals in this season. He's had a couple games where he's missed field goals. I think the Raiders got to get a kicker that's just consistent. And I'm not saying let's cut Daniel Carlson, but Carlson has to be able to hit those. And I understand the weather and it's cold, and I get all that, but other kickers are making those field goals in those situations, right? To me, the Raiders got to be a little bit more consistent at the kicker position. They got to get more out of Carlson. He makes one of any of those 3 field goals, we're winning this football game, right? So again, to me, it's unfortunate that the Raiders lost this game. It's a game that they probably should have won. Although some people are going to say they're glad the Raiders lost, and I understand why some people would say that. But we got to recognize that nothing's guaranteed. No quarterback coming out is guaranteed. No coach is guaranteed to come to your team, right? You got to figure out what you have with this actual team. And one of the things I've been saying now for 2 to 3 weeks is we got to figure out what Scott Turner is as an offensive coordinator. We got to watch him with Gardner Minshew. We got to watch him with Aiden O'Connell. We got to watch him with whatever quarterback it is that we can kind of throw out there, right? And we talked about Daniel Jones potentially bringing him in as well. Obviously, that didn't happen. But with Gardner Minshew, our offense looked better, right? Believe it or not, the offense has looked better up to this point. And today, even with Aiden O'Connell out there, the offense looked better. Now, it's unfortunate we only scored 17 points. It's too many field goals, right? That's definitely going to be one of the issues looking back at this game. But this is Aiden O'Connell's first time back, right? So we will give him a little bit of slack. First game back from that broken thumb. From my understanding, he's also not 100% healthy either. So we're going to see what he does the rest of this season, right? Because again, there's a chance Aiden O'Connell's your quarterback going into next season, right? If he plays the way he played today the rest of this season, and again, I get it, it's one game, it's a divisional game, but still, the guy looked good out there, and you got to give him credit for the performance that he had. Hopefully, they're able to turn those red zone trips into touchdowns. I think that's going to come down more to the quarterback making plays and the offense coordinator potentially designing certain concepts or whatever it is to be able to score touchdowns. But also the Chiefs do have a good defense as well. So we'll see over the next couple of weeks where we play teams that might not be as good as the Chiefs on the defensive side. And we'll see what ends up happening. Either way, I'm personally very, very, very excited to see what the Raiders do the rest of the season. Let me know what you guys think, man. Thumbs up, subscribe, and I will see you guys next time with another video.